That's real. That's a real thing.
Hello. It's me, Jepson, coming at you live, but not live, because it's YouTube. But YouTube has live. What am I saying? Hi. So the last video was my thought process is on creative anxiety. Go check that out if you haven't seen it yet, because this video is a response to some of the comments. I grabbed 3 comments from that video that I wanted to talk about in further detail, and I've got them on this monitor over here that is just far enough away that it's hard enough for me to read, so I may have to lean in to see them. So I wanted to start with MC and Mike, who commented saying, I wonder, as I'm going through this problem myself, how do you deal with the lack of motivation? I'm not sure if this was a big factor in your YouTube hiatus, but I wonder how I could go about working on that aspect of content creation. And all of these comments are going to kind of flow into each other pretty well, I think, because all of them are kind of along the same lines. Motivation for me. So once upon a time, I don't know if you remember, do you remember Rooster Teeth and Bernie Burns? I don't know much about, like, personally this person, Bernie Burns, but he used to do this vlog on the Rooster Teeth website, and I used to watch those somewhat regularly. And one of the videos that he made was about motivation, and he basically said, I don't believe in motivation. I don't believe that motivation exists. You don't need motivation to do things. You just need to do things. And that kind of, I thought about that, and I thought about that, and I thought about that, and ultimately, I at the time, I didn't really fully agree. I could see where he was coming from, but I didn't really fully agree. And that did help me to sort of reflect on my own motivations. And ultimately, I think that motivation is important, but it's not the only driving factor. So sometimes you're not motivated to do something, but you have to do something. For example, like if you need to make money to pay rent and buy food, you have to do these things, your job or whatever you're doing to make money. You have to do it regardless of whether or not you're motivated. And really, that in and of itself is motivation. It's a kind of motivation. It's just not a very positive motivation. So what I think you're looking for here, MC and Mike, is positive motivation. And I'm not an expert, and I'm not going to throw advice at you necessarily, but I will say my thoughts on my own personal motivations, which is I have a beautiful wife and a lovely little kitty who need food and shelter, and that's my ultimate motivation, is my family. And you know, I mean, I feel like that's a pretty standard response, honestly. I have other motivations too. For example, I like to make people laugh a lot. That's one of my motivations. So, you know, these things are, that's why I can't really agree that motivation doesn't exist. But I thought I'd bring that point up because I could see how that could be useful to somebody if they're wondering, you know, how do I go about navigating, you know, content creation and navigating motivation. How? So, MC and Mike, thank you for your comment. He says, for context, I occasionally do game reviews, so hey, you know, go check out his game reviews. He says, not a plug, I swear, but there you go. And so, I guess that's it. That's all my thoughts on that question, actually. There's no more to that comment that I have anything to say about. So I want to move on to the next one, which I actually picked one from my buddy Steven George, from Steven Vlog. He commented on the video, and he said, so for context, if you haven't seen the video, just like quick rundown, I talked a lot about being sort of hard on myself and my anxiety for uploading stuff and going live on Twitch. And he says, well, one thing you touched on that, and this isn't a question or anything, but I thought this would be a great comment to add to this conversation. He says, one thing you touched on that I've learned in my career is that you are your hardest critic. There has been times over the years where I finish something and think, this isn't very good, and I don't believe people will like it. But in every single situation, I released it anyway and was proven wrong. You will always hold yourself to standards that the audience won't. And what feels like an immense drop-off in entertainment value to you may not even be noticed by viewers. Perfection isn't attainable. Aim for 98%, and if you screw up and hit 89%, that's okay too. It's close enough. And you know what? This is advice that I have received not just from Steven, not just from other YouTubers, not just from creators, not just from artists, but my therapist, my parents, my friends, the rest of my family. I have received this exact piece of advice from so many people, and if that doesn't tell you that that's just entirely accurate because of so many people saying it, if that doesn't give you some comfort that is something that you can what am I trying to say? It's real. That's real. That's a real thing. And it's something that I have struggled with forever, man. I've struggled with that forever. And so I thought that was a really great place to, a really great transition into the next topic of this video, which is my personal thing that I really wanted to talk about the most, which is, even though this is about motivation, it's about creating things, this is an area of my life that I don't talk about that often, actually. So I talk about it on the Twitch channel a lot, but I haven't really talked about it that much here on YouTube. But I really love graphic design. I love making colorful, popping graphics that are eye-catching, and I love doing that for thumbnails, and I love doing that for banners, and I love making logos, and that's why I've changed my intro and my logo and my aesthetic over the years so many different times. People always constantly, in the early days, every time I would change my intro, they'd be like, but I like the old one. And I'm like, but I just like making them, so why not? So I just kept doing that, and you can't always let people, that. On a side note, this is a side tangent here, you can't always let people control, like if you are enjoying something and they're saying, I liked the other thing you did better. Okay. Oops, punch the mic. Opinions. Everyone's got them and they all stink. Just like a butthole or something, or whatever the quote is. So to move into the next comment, this is the final comment that we're going to be touching on today. But if you guys have any other questions, leave them down in the comments. Maybe some of them will pop up in a future video. So this is from Kwame Williams. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Thank you so much for your comment. It says, I'm curious about your graphic designing background. I also really like the space aesthetic you have on your channel banners and transitions, but I never really understood the source of that idea. Could you talk a little bit about your designer background and the origins for spacing out your channel? Hope that's an okay question to ask. My support for you, Jepson. Much support to you. Heart. There's a heart at the end of that comment. I love it. Thank you so much for your question. That is really, really excellent and one of my favorite things. I even responded to that comment saying that I would absolutely make a video this week, and I just couldn't resist making it now. So we're going to talk about this for the next 3 minutes. I recently, when I was kind of coming up with some of these rebrand ideas, I really just sat down and said, I want to make some art as a therapeutic thing. It started as a therapeutic thing. I wasn't even necessarily intending on it being, part of my branding or a background for my streams or a banner or a logo. But it sort of kind of just came out of me just playing around with graphics. I use a program called Affinity Photo, which is very, very, very similar to Photoshop. There's definitely some key features that it doesn't have, but the one key feature is that it's not a monthly subscription like Photoshop is. It's a one-time payment. So, not sponsored or anything, but that's what I use to edit my thumbnails, make graphics, logos, whatever. It's a pixel-based graphic photo editor, essentially. And the space background that you see in my intro was 100% made by me across the board. The only thing in there that isn't entirely made by me was the little, you can't even really see them. They're tiny little satellites. And I just went and Google searched, satellite silhouette, and just was like, there it is. I could have easily made my own little satellite if I wanted to, but, that was just there. It was one little last detail to throw on at the end. And so this is sort of my thought process with these graphics. I really enjoy just experimenting with colors and shapes. I've always been an artist. When I was a kid, I drew a lot of pictures, and I started getting fairly good at it until, life happened, and I kind of gave up on a lot of things that I, as a kid, were really interested in, like music and art and all these other I used to write stories, y'all. We'll talk about that in a future video too. I used to write stories, and I draw all the time. I have been an artist my whole life, and so when I came on to do the YouTube thing and I started doing gaming stuff, it was a really, really just easy extension of myself to put, my all into these graphics that show off my channel and brand my channel. So, hopefully that gives you some idea. The idea of spacing out my channel, I just really like outer space. That's maybe another thing that we can talk about here on the channel. I really like topics about space and whatever, science, the universe. I think it's really big and fantastic, and, it makes you feel small and insignificant, but also that makes it almost feel like life is more important because it's so big and vast and unknowing and mysterious, and I just like that about it. And so I want my branding to reflect that. That's why I use a lot of dark blues and purples in my branding, and all my logos are blue and white and stuff. Because I just really like that aesthetic. I really think visually it looks really calming to look at, and it's not very harsh on the eyes. So that's always been my motivation behind making graphics. So hopefully that answers your questions. Thank you guys so much for leaving these comments, especially to Kwame Williams, MCM Mike, and my buddy Steven George for leaving those comments, and everybody else who left comments. Real fast, before we wrap up this video, I wanted to say thank you again to everybody who commented on the main channel video. I say main channel, the gaming channel video, where I talked about verses and the vlog here. It was an overwhelming response. That video in a day got over 10,000 views and nearly 1,000 likes and like 300 comments, which I spent all day responding to. So you guys are absolutely amazing. I'm going to keep reading your comments. I'm going to keep responding to them. Leave your questions below if you have any for me. I might even type them up and respond right away. And if you are interested in getting more videos like this, I'm going to be hosting another one of these on Wednesday on Patreon for patrons only. It will be exclusive to Patreon. It will never come to this channel. So if you're a patron, thank you so much for your support. We actually got a couple patrons the last couple of days because of talking about it on the vlog. So thank you guys so much who became patrons. Check out the links in the description for that. And I will see you guys in the next one, whenever that is. Love you guys. Peace. Gotta wet my whistle. Which just sounds kind of dirty, honestly. More than anything. That was my whistle.